I want to welcome everybody back if you attended the first session. If not, I'll do a brief introduction. My name is Tim Murphy. This is Tim Talks, so makes sense, right? Tim Murphy, Tim Talks. I came from the contractor side. I am a state A licensed contractor. I was working in the industry for 26 years with a family business. During that time, worked on a lot of mini split systems and light commercial, ice machines, walk-in coolers, and other stuff like that. So if you joined us last time, I kind of ran a little long, or at least halfway through. Really wanted to get through some more stuff than I actually did. But before we start and get into it, if at any time you want me to slow down, you have any questions, definitely ask them in the chat. If you need me to go, I'm going to be switching camera angle. We're going to try something new for you guys. Hopefully you guys can give us some feedback, whether you like what we do later on. And if you need me to slow down, just go ahead and put it in the chat. But without that, I want to go ahead and get started. So we're going to be talking about basically going to be disassembling these, the mini split systems. We got a Cooper&Hunter multi-zone. It's a high wall Sophia and a cassette, and we have the condenser. Anytime you're doing maintenance on these things, you're going to be working with any kind of chemicals or anything. You always want to make sure you have your gloves and your safety glasses. Today, I'm not going to be doing an actual live cleaning, but I'm going to disassemble them for the sake of time. Try to go through everything step by step, disassembling. We're going to remove the blower wheel. And so make sure you're wearing your proper PPE whenever you do stuff. Make sure the power is off, most important. Make sure you have a meter to be able to check the power. Basic stuff, right? Common sense. Another thing I wanted to touch on that I forgot to mention last time is, and this kind of ties into maintenance. If you're going back to a job to do maintenance and the customer doesn't have a surge protector, these are this is a good protection for your systems. I've put these on many systems in the past, and I've come back to jobs where this was actually melted and fried on the wall where you could see smoke. I was able to change it out, and the system still works. So it did protect that system. So these are good. They're very affordable. We sell them at all the Tropic locations. You should be able to get one. Another thing that I don't know if I mentioned last time was when installing these condensers, installing them on a wall bracket up off the grass is going to help with keeping the coils clean, keep them off, keep them away from weed whackers. So that kind of ties into that maintenance and service aspect of what we do. Over here, I have a couple items. I have some coil cleaners, and anytime you're cleaning coils on these systems, they have the Cooper&Hunter. They have a gold fin technology they use. Some of the evaporator coils have a blue fin technology, so you don't want to use a real harsh cleaner. So use something that's like a mild detergent is fine in warm water. But like some of these coil cleaners are like the spray on, no rinse. Those are good. Obviously, I would still say to rinse them. And then we also have this Viper drain pan treatment. This works really well in the mini splits as well. So these I highly recommend. Of course, like I said, we have a couple other. We have Viper. It's a non-rinsing. Like I said, you want to stay away from the real heavy alkaline or acid, like Black Max, the real heavy foaming coil cleaners that we tend to use. And this is another Viper coil cleaner. And we have different brands, a bunch of different brands. I like the Viper brand. Personally, that's what we use a lot. We also have, it's going to come in handy when you don't want to use your pump sprayer and that you don't get much pressure, but we have a turbo tank. So it's basically a portable pressure washer. And what's cool about this one versus, I used to have, I don't know what brand it was, but it was an orange one. This actually has where you can charge it in your car. So this, I think, is really cool, especially if you're a tech, so you can keep it plugged in and charged so you're not worrying about the battery going dead. So that works really well. For the condensers, we have this. This is a New Calgon Cleaner Connect. Hooks up to your hose. And in these bottles, you put the bottle in there. You can see the picture there. But, and it self-mixes. And this works really well, especially for outdoor coils. We have, these are bottle brushes. I get these bottle brushes. One second here. I get these bottle brushes. I get them on Harbor Freight. They're pretty cheap. You get a pack of them. These are good to use for the the drain pan, especially on the high walls. When you're getting in there, you can get the bottle brush and you can brush across the bottom of the coil, and you can also brush out the drain port. So these come in very handy. And I'm also going to be going over this today. And this is, our bib kit system that we sell at Tropic Supply. So I'll be putting this on for you as well. This is a really helpful tool. It helps keep the job from getting real messy. You won't be able to use it on the cassettes, but you will be able to use those. And typically the high walls are really the ones that are more of an issue when it comes to getting a lot of dirt on them and being in certain areas where they get real dusty, especially the blower wheels. But whenever you're cleaning these systems, especially the high wall, I highly, highly, highly recommend removing the blower wheel every time you clean. If you're gonna put any water or any type of coil cleaner onto this coil and you're gonna start drenching it, that water is gonna go down into the blower wheel. And what's gonna happen is you got the shaft where the blower wheel is, it's a small shaft. And then what's gonna happen is over time, and I've seen it happen even after one coil cleaning, where you go back after you clean the coil, you didn't remove the blower wheel, but now that blower wheel seized on there. And it's trying to get that off with seized in there is just, it's a nightmare. So just do yourself a favor. As I go through this, it's not too hard to remove the blower wheel. We'll take the blower wheel out and then put your bib system on, and then we'll clean the coil. Also, before I get switch camera angles and start getting into the disassembly of these systems, I want to mention the warranty. What's really important about Cooper&Hunter is that you register the system. You have 60 days after install to register the system. If you do not register the system, your warranty is up at 60 days. So if you don't register it within 60 days of installation, it's a 60-day warranty. If you go back there and you say, hey, I have a bad board, or a compressor went bad, or something, or the coil leaks, you may be able to work it out with Cooper&Hunter. I doubt it. They're pretty firm on their warranty, the way they want you to register it. So very, very important that you register the system. If you do register the system, you're going to get 5-year all parts, 7-year compressor. You do get an additional 1-year labor warranty, or not labor warranty, I'm sorry, a 1-year warranty on the remotes, but it turns into a 5-year parts, 7-year compressor. So it's very important to make sure you register these systems. Without that, I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera angle. So if you guys give me a minute, and I'm going to disassemble all 3 of these units. So hopefully we can get this done today. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. You guys get dizzy or anything, or if I need to slow down, just let me know. Like I said, this is our first time testing this out. I had a contractor that called me for a tech support call, and he had mentioned a 3rd-person camera angle would be very helpful. So we're trying this out today. You guys are going to be our guinea pigs. Before I get started on this, showing you how to clean the coil in this condenser, I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of the indoor air quality options. So this is the iWave. I'm going to show you where to install this in the cassette and the high wall. If you don't want to go with the iWave, you want something just more basic, I'm going to go with the mini LED with UV light. The only downside to the UV light is it's a light, and where you need to put it in the high wall, if you have a customer that likes a dark bedroom with no lights whatsoever, probably not a good idea to put this in there. Reason being is it needs to go, if you see it needs to go by the blower wheel to keep all that mildew or that stuff from forming onto the blower wheel itself. So it's gonna emit a light. So maybe not the best for somebody who likes a dark room. Also, with this iWave, another thing that's important, and I'm saying this now so I don't forget, is this has little brushes. So when you do the maintenance, after you've installed one of these iWaves onto your mini split system, you want to make sure you clean these brushes as well. These brushes are dirty and they're all caked up. It's not going to work properly. Okay. So with that being said, and then this is the bib system that we'll be putting on in a little bit. So just like with a standard residential AC system, you're going to want to pump it down before you clean the coil, especially if you're going to remove it. With these systems, moving the coil around while you're cleaning and removing the blower wheel, you don't necessarily need to pump it down. But if you do, for some reason, feel the need to remove the unit off the wall and take the whole system outside and clean it, you can just pump it down just like a regular system would. You're going to just close the suction line valve, and you're going to basically this is a 5mm Allen key. So basically, you're just like you do with a regular system. You have your gauges on there. You turn the system on. You'd have all the zones, and you would just pump down one system at a time by closing the suction line port, just like a normal system. So not really too much has changed. You don't have to go into pump down mode or anything like that. Just watch your gauge. Once the system is pumped down, shut that zone off, and then you can pump down your next system. And then once you're done, unplug the system, shut down the power, and then you'll be good to go. So now we got the system pumped down. The easiest way that I found to clean these condenser coils is just to clean them from the front by removing this grill and removing the blower wheel or blower fan blade. With these, pretty simple. And again, like I said, if you guys need me to slow down, you want me to stop, or if you can't see quite well, just let me know in the chat. Now with these, if you see, there's like a little U on the bottom, it's the same. So you don't really need to remove the bottom screws completely. You can just loosen them, and it's gonna come right off. And you put that to the side. And now you got your fan blade, of course. We made sure the power's off. You can definitely hurt yourself if you kick on. This is a 1/2-inch socket, so you're just going to take that nut right off. Now this is a plastic, all plastic or composite fan blade. So the reason why I'm saying that is if you look, there is a flat spot here, and then there is a flat spot on here. So when you put this on, you don't want to just jam it on, right? Sorry for shaking. You don't want to just jam it on there, because then if you crack this and you have to get another one, and nobody wants to deal with that. So now, once you get the fan blade off and the cover off, as you can see the gold color, and even the return vents are coated on the outside. This gold thin coating works really well, especially by the ocean. It holds up very well. I've pretty impressed with it. The few that I've put in, I've gone back a couple years after, and I didn't really see too much corrosion in them. It also helps if you can let the customer know, the homeowner know, if they do live by the ocean, that it is definitely wise to just come out once every few weeks or once a month and just rinse it with fresh water to try to keep that salt from sitting on there. Another thing that we sell at Tropic, they're called corrosion grenades. They work pretty well. I think a lot of people haven't heard about them. I know they're used a lot on boats, but it's basically a zinc, it almost looks like a lead fishing weight, and it clamps onto the copper line on the outside, and that is going to focus the corrosion in that one spot. It's not obviously not going to 100% guarantee against corrosion, but it's definitely going to slow down the corrosion process for on the condenser coil. Now you can, if you're putting on a roof by the beach and you're like if you want extra protection, we offer a condenser coating, a C coating in a spray can. So you can do that as well. You may want to coat some of the galvanized metal and whatnot around here to make sure that that's going to at least last as long as it can. Typically, we get 10 years at most out of a system that's right by the beach. Okay, so now we're going to what most people don't like to do. I think this is, out of all the systems, this is going to be the most difficult to service and maintain and disassemble. Really not all that hard. The later versions, or the older versions, were a little more difficult, but with these, with these systems, they've got it down pretty good. So there's really only 3 screws that you need to take off in this system. The older systems, there were a lot more. And some of the other systems that they have out now, there are even less, which makes servicing a lot easier. So I think they've really been listening to the contractor on that end. Before I start assembling this, I do want to go over here and grab this iWave. I have seen in the past, so since you need to service this iWave with the brushes, I have seen in the past, seen it stuck on the inside of this cover. Make servicing the iWave very simple. And then you can just run the wires right in here and put it right into the line in power. So that's not a bad idea. Now it does, the only downside I would see is it covers up some of the error codes and it covers up your schematic. Now the error codes and the schematic can be found on Cooper&Hunter's website. So maybe not all that big a deal, but you never know. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a little screwdriver right in here, and we're going to pop this cover off. And that's going to come out. Now this plastic is pretty rigid. It almost always feels like you're going to break something, but very rarely have I actually broken one of these clips. The more fragile is going to be this top cover, seems to break the most. So that being said, I like to remove it. If you've ever worked on an ice machine, it's very similar to an ice bin. You got a little spot right here. You can see a little pin there on the other side as well. So basically, you're just going to pull it out, work its way out that way, and then on this side, work its way out. Pull out the sensor and unplug it. And if you need to clean it, because this is all covered in dirt, go ahead and take it and clean it. But if you are going to clean it, make sure you move the Wi-Fi module and make sure you move the display. And then feel free to clean it as much as your heart desires. So we want to go ahead, at this point, we want to verify, and I have the system powered off already, but just like with anything, you want to make sure there's no power to it before you start working on it. On these systems, your line voltage is going to be 1 and 2. Your communication is going to be 3. So I always will go across 1 and 2. 1 and 2, we have nothing. And then always go across ground in each leg as well. This is a 220, so we want to make sure both legs are down as well. So good, no power. Okay. These are your filters. Take your filters out. Now these little filters, I don't know, some people end up throwing them away. I have a lot of people tell me that they do make a difference with the buildup, but they usually tend to get lost. So I wouldn't really worry too much about losing those. Okay, again, we see the gold. You can see the gold color. That gold coating is on it as well. So that's going to help it to resist corrosion. It's also supposed to resist microbial growth. The only issue I've ever seen with these getting really, really dirty is I have seen them in restaurants with a lot of cooking. And I had a couple customers that had them maybe 10, 15 feet away from the grill. And this was just totally covered black. And we actually ended up cleaning the system like every 2 months. And it just got to the point where I think about every 4 or 5 years, we were just changing them out because they just got so caked up and it was just getting too extensive to clean them. So if you ever get one of these and it's and somebody wants to install them and it's near anything cooking or anything like that, you really want to try to steer them away from that as best as possible, because you'll be back several times trying to clean all the grease and gunk out of it. So now we have this turning vane. Turning vane is pretty simple. We're going to take that off before we take the cover off. This corner here, it's like a hexagon shape. So just kind of pay attention to it. Sometimes you can take a marker and just put a little mark in the corner here, because where that's basically the motor that's going to adjust the turning vane. So when you pull that off, you're going to want to make sure you put it back in the same position. If not, it's not too easy to adjust it up. But like I said before, this plastic is pretty durable. So I just kind of bend this down, pull it away, and that's that right there. There's a little clip here. You can see that little clip right there. Just kind of push it, and that's it. This is off. And cleaning these with a mild soap, dish soap, is going to be your best friend. Now, you have one little cover here. Some of the units may have more than one. So on the larger system, may have 2 or 3 of these covers here. So you pop them up, and it's going to reveal the screw behind it. So I'm going to take that off. Magnetic tip screwdriver is going to come very handy for you guys when it comes to working on these systems. Another screw here. Okay, now we got the 3 screws off. On the top here, there's little tiny clips. I don't know if you can see it, but there's little tiny clips. There's 1, 2, there's about 4 or 5 of them span across. The best thing to do on this is to just pull up on the grill itself and work your way across. And it's gonna come right out. I'm just gonna get this sensor out. And then there you go. And then there's your cover. Like I said, soft bristle brush, soapy water. That's gonna be the best way to clean it. Now, on the back side here, I'm gonna give you guys a little look. There is the other position that would be an ideal spot to install the iWave. Along the back here, there's a flat part. Sticking your iWave to the back there is another good place to install it. There's not enough room to install the iWave next to the blower wheel because it will hit the blower wheel. So ideally, the iWave, you're going to want to put it before the coil on the incoming air side of the coil. So either on the cover or along the back here. And then once you install it, there's a nice, if you see, there's a little, you have some space here. You put your power module or the power supply, you can put that right on top of here. And the cover, it will still close when you put the cover on. So that works really well as well. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to start working our way through the system, taking out this blower wheel. So we got the cover off. Now there's a little grill here. We want to take this grill out. Just pops out. These tend to get a lot of dust, and I have seen these, the paint start to deteriorate and start to build up rust and mildew or mold or whatever you want to call it. If you clean this, it wouldn't be a bad idea to take a can of Rust-Oleum, clean it, dry it, and respray it. Of course, depending on how bad it actually is. Some aren't that bad, some get really bad. Now, this may be a little hard to show you guys, so bear with me. There's little tabs here, and they're all the way across, and that's what's going to hold this turning thing in here. The turning thing on this one is a manual turning thing, so it's basically just going to move back and forth. You're not going to
And we have a question.
Yes.
Are all the screws the same size?
Yes. I am using, I want to say this is a number 3 Phillips head. So you could basically, the only 2 tools that you really need to disassemble this whole system are going to be a Phillips head screwdriver. I recommend a longer screwdriver because that's going to allow you, it's going to make it easier for you to get the set screw off on the blower wheel. Some of the older Mitsubishi systems, if you've been working on these systems for a while, they actually used to use an Allen key for the set screw, and it was like 2.5 millimeter, I forget the exact size it was, but it was really small and really difficult to find, and especially it was hard to find something long enough to reach in there. So having now most all the systems I've worked on, you could take everything apart with just the Phillips head screwdriver. I also recommend just a little thermostat screwdriver, and because there are some safety clips that are on some of the plugs that are there to keep the plug from backing out by accident and making sure that the plug stays plugged in. But we'll go over that as I start disassembling this.
Hey, Tim.
But
So I think the issue is they want to make sure, like, do you have to remember the sequence of screws, or will all the screws work in the same holes?
No, all the screws work in the same holes. The only screws that are different on the high wall are your grounding screws. Your grounding screws, and since we're talking about it, I can show you the difference, but they are all the same length, which makes life a lot easier, except for your grounding screws. So your grounding screws, they're more of a fine thread, and then all your other screws are like a standard coarse thread, and they're all the same length on this high wall. On the cassette, there are a couple of different varying lengths. So if you're taking them apart, then you may want to separate them. But in reality, it's pretty evident. The long screws, you're going to need a long screw, and the short screws, you're going to need one of the short screws. It shouldn't be too hard to if you get them all mixed together, you'll be able to figure out pretty easily which one goes where. Just like all the plugs, a lot of the plugs are all they only go in one spot. So you're not really too worried about mixing plugs or plugging something in the wrong area. And some of them are actually color coded too. So a black plug will go with a black, black female plug, black male plug, white female plug, white male plug. They're going to go together, red, and so on. Any other questions?
Not right now.
No? Okay. So, okay. So like I was saying before, they are these little tabs, and you're basically just going to take your fingernail and going to push these in and just work your way across. And like I said before, this plastic, it always feels like you're going to break it, but I haven't really broken anything yet, so I'll probably break something today now that I say it. Anyhow, here's your turning vanes. They're pretty flexible. These off, clean them. Now we're starting to get into where the blower wheel is. I'm not going to be able to turn my head to be able to show you exactly where this is when I remove the set screw, but when I remove the blower wheel, it'll all make sense then. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the other grounding screw. And there really is no particular order. You don't necessarily need to, I'm going to remove this electrical box. You don't necessarily need to remove this electrical box, but it's so easy to remove and get out of the way that it kind of makes it just makes sense to take it out of the way and have to risk getting it wet with water. So I always remove them, just like I said, they're really easy to remove. And again, we're only using a Phillips head screwdriver, so it's pretty simple. Here is your coil sensor, and there's just a little spring, like a spring clip in there that kind of holds it in place. You just slide it out. And then we're going to take our power. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way so you guys can see as well. And another good habit to do is when you take a screw out on certain things, you can put them in so you don't lose them. I'm working on bigger systems. Sometimes I'll take the screw out, and once I disassemble it, I'll put the screws back in the place where they were. Helps so you don't lose anything or get confused on where it might go. That's your control wire. And taking a picture if you're going on a system. I recommend before you pull it out, take a picture of them so when you go to reinstall the board and everything, you'll know which wire goes where. I typically just go alphabetically. So it'll be black, red, and then white, and then green is green. Goes into ground. Now, there's a little here. You just take that, and it just kind of pops off. And this is where this is your bypass. This is basically your button if you want to bypass the remote and you want to test the system. You want to just put it on cool. You press that button. It's going to turn the system on, and it's going to use the last set point that was what was called for. So if the system was set to cool at 74 and the remote's not working, you hit that, it's going to go back to that as well, if that makes sense. On the top, there's a screw up here. Oh, looks like I already took it off. But there is a screw up here. And then once you get that, oh, you know what, before I take that off, I'm sorry. Those little plastic safety clips that I was telling you about, these can be a little frustrating. So I'm gonna try to go slow here and try to get close to show you how I do it. So I take my flathead on the thermostat screwdriver, and there's two little tabs. There's one little tab here, and there's another little tab here. And this little black piece here, this little black plastic piece, you're not gonna be able to get that plug off because you got press clip this little red safety plastic. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's going to keep you from doing that. And the idea is so the plugs don't back out. So there's a little tab here. Hopefully you guys can see it. But once I pull it off, I'll get closer to the camera. You just kind of push it up there and push it. Oops. No, that's one. Here's another one. It's going to be the same. And these do require mini splits. Patience is going to be your best friend because you can get real frustrated working with these little parts real easily. So this is the little clip, and you'll see these not on every plug, but you'll see them throughout this on a lot of systems, on the condensers and on the different versions of the head units. Once those are off, you just squeeze the little tab and they come right out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how these go. So when you take this little plug out, you're going to plug it back in. You see these little ridges here? They slide right in to the back of these screws here. So hopefully you guys can see that. And that just keeps it from the plug from backing out. But they are frustrating. If you're not used to them and you're trying to pull that plug and you don't know that's there, you're going to be pulling and pulling and pulling. I've seen people pull the wires out of the back of these harnesses because they're pulling them so hard that they can't get it to depress and pull out. So take your time. Always check the back. I have seen some of these are different colors, and these are red, so it makes it easy to see. So that's very beneficial. Okay, so now we got that off. We got your ground wires off. There's a little here, and that's it. This is your main board is inside here, and your terminal. Everything in one little kit. So you can take this off, put it to the side, so we don't have to worry about getting that wet and causing damage to that. Now, once that's off, we're almost totally disassembled with this. Here's your fan motor here. And on this side, there's only one screw. We're going to take this off. And this is going to give us access to be able to pull that blower wheel out. And now, this is going to be the hard part. You guys bear with me on this one. Finding that set screw. Okay, I did it by feel. Take the screw completely out if you like. If you do, this is obviously not the same kind of screw as all the others. So you definitely don't want to lose this, because if you lose this, good luck trying to find another one. Now we got this side's off. It's going to pull up on it, and the copper, it's pretty flexible, so you don't have you can. It has a good amount of play to it. They're pretty rigid. I haven't had a leak caused by doing this yet, so hopefully I don't. This is the end bearing. I highly recommend anytime you clean these, put a little more lithium or some kind of grease inside here, because there is no ball bearing. It's just basically it's plastic bearing, and the shaft rests inside of it. So you always make sure you want to grease that up when you're done. And then pull the blower wheel out. And that's your blower wheel. Now you can really clean this blower wheel. Make sure you get all the dirt and dust off. Now I'm going to show you. You can see the set screw. That's where the set screw goes. and you're always looking for a turning vane that's been removed, that's going to be your indicator. That's another importance of having a long screwdriver, because if your screwdriver is not long enough, it's not going to reach to get into the blower wheel. So once you remove that set screw, then you can just slide it right out. As I was talking before, this is a plastic blower wheel. The sleeve is steel. So once you get this wet and you're cleaning it, if you haven't removed the blower wheel, that water creeps in there. And then when you remove the set screw and you try to slide this blower wheel off, this end is rubber. And I've seen people pull it so hard that this whole end piece stays to the motor. So my advice to you is, if this is a customer and you're going to be going back over and over for doing the maintenance, just remove the blower wheel. It's really not too difficult. You're disassembling the system anyways. Remove the blower wheel. You can clean better when it's out, and then that way you don't have to worry about having an issue later on. Now, one thing I want to show you. I marked this with a yellow tape here. This is where that yellow, this is a yellow piece of tape here that goes all the way across. That's where I would recommend installing your LED UV mini UV light. That's going to be on the back side of the blower wheel. There's going to be plenty of clearance. But I do want to show you,
Tim, I just want to let you know it's 8:40.
Oh, yeah, I talk too much. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm almost done with this one, and the cassette is a lot easier, so we should be good. On these, now this is your LED UV light. If you look, there's little tiny dotted lines. I don't know if can you see that? Dotted lines with little scissors? Yes, I hope so. So basically, you're gonna have to measure it, whatever the distance is. As you can see, this is much longer than the unit itself, which is gonna be great for the cassette, but for the smaller high walls, not so much. So once you measure it, you're going to just take a pair of scissors and cut that dotted line. And then it has a two-sided tape to it. So you're gonna make sure you clean the back plastic very well, get some alcohol prep wipes, make sure it's free, has nothing on it, because you don't want this to fall into the blower wheel. And then you're gonna go ahead, once it's cut to the size, you're gonna go ahead and put it right where the yellow tape is. This yellow tape does not come on the units from the manufacturer. I just put there so as a marker, so that way you guys can better understand what I'm saying by putting it, or where I'm saying to locate it. Once you put the LED strip there, you're going to have to drill a hole for the wire to come out, because once you close this, you're not going to have any place to put the wires out. There's a little hole here. I marked it with a little black circle. You're going to drill that out, and then once you drill that out and you run your plug out, then you're going to go ahead and get some thumb gum or some kind of, maybe you can use like caulking. I've seen people take a hot glue gun and hot glue it and seal up that hole. Also, on this side, there is a port here that you can pull out if you want to drain this side of the drain pan. And this drain pan on the Cooper&Hunter is not removable. The drain pan is just one piece with the rest of the back. So once you remove everything, you're going to want to prop up on the coil. You can put something to hold it up there, like a kickstand. And then you want to go ahead and take the bottle brush and run the bottle brush back and forth. And then run the bottle brushes down your port. The other main drain port is right down there. So if you have your bottle brush, you can take your bottle brush and you can just go right in. Okay, one last thing. If you have a condensation pump, a lot of times the condensation pumps go on the bottom. This would be the time. There's little clips here. You can just undo the clip and it's behind here. Remove it, clean it, and you'll be good to go. But running low on time here, so I'm going to move on to the cassette. Cassette, much easier to work on. You can work on everything from the bottom. Just take.
Hey, Tim.
Yes.
It's okay. You want to show them how that bib thing works?
Yes, I would love to, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
As long as, okay, perfect. So the bib kit. Our bib kits, they just come with the bib only. So I recommend picking up a 5-gallon bucket from Lowe's or Home Depot and getting a lid for it, and then just keeping it inside the bucket. So your bib kit, you can see, it's just basically a bib, right? Now, at the end Let's move this camera down a little bit here. At the end of the bib, it's a long, I have this taped up because it's basically a long tail. So this is going to extend out about 6 feet, and you're going to run this end of this into a bucket as it hangs down. So all the water is going to come down and drain into the bucket. But the bib kit, this bib kit is much simpler than a lot of the other ones that I've used in the past. You're basically just wrapping it around. It has a tight retention cord here. You're just going to wrap this around, tuck it in behind. You want to get it behind, in between the wall and the unit, and stretch it around. Just really try to get it in behind, and then you would tighten this. And then, like I said, I would you pull that out, tuck it in there, pull this out, tuck it in there, and then that's it. Now you can go ahead with your battery, your portable sprayer, and you can go ahead and clean the coil. All that water is going to run down and run out here. That's why I'd recommend keeping this out as well. And that way the water is going to help drain out of the drain pan. On the outside, wouldn't hurt to get like a wet vac. Make sure you clean that out first. So as you're cleaning it, the water is going to help flush out the drain line as well. So, any questions?
Tim, we have a question. What brand is the bib kit?
Bib kit is, it's a Clean Guard. It's made by New Calgon. I have seen there are other kits out there. This is what we saw at Tropic, and in all honesty, it's really all you need. Some of the other bib kits I've seen, and I will tell you, when I first got this bib kit, I was like, oh, that's it. But after using it, this bib kit is really simple. Now, it does come in different sizes. So if you see, this only fits up to 12,000 BTU, and we sell a larger one as well. The other bib kits, they come with clips, and they have different ways of clipping onto the back of the unit to keep it from falling. This is just super simple. It just wraps around, and you can clean it. It's very quick, much quicker than the old systems. Okay, I'm going to get to this cassette. If there's any other questions. No? Okay.
No, you're all set.
So I'm going to, if I need you to slow down, just let me know. There are 4 screws to remove this cover. There's 1 on each corner. And I did do this on the last video as well. And Nicole, will these videos will they be able to rewatch these later on?
Yes, they will be. It takes me a couple days to edit them and everything and get them online, but I'll send a link and a follow-up email.
Okay, going back to the screw question, if you see these are long machine screws, and they have washers, but it's pretty evident because you're not going to be able to put a coarse screw in these machine holes. But if you do want to keep them separate from the others, then it's not a bad idea. Now, if you look, there are there's a little hook here, and there's a little wire there. And there's another little hook here and a little wire there. What that's going to do is it's going to help stop this cover from falling on your head. So when you go to put this back in, make sure you put those on, at least for the next guy. And then there, there. That. Now, here's your control panel. We're going to go ahead and take your control panel off. Couple different, try to do this as well. We're going to talk about where to install. There are certain places you can install these. Not as much room for this in this system. You may have to get creative in putting the power module for the iWave. The power module for, let's see here. Where is it? Okay, power module for, hopefully you guys aren't getting dizzy. Power module for the ballast for the LEDs is much thinner. So there's definitely, you're gonna find it easy to put it like right there. That's where I'd recommend putting it. There is a little bit of room inside this panel to put it there as well. So now we're gonna go ahead and, there's no electric here, but electric typically comes in through here you'll take this little plastic cover off, and then you have your wires will be coming in through here. There are 3 screws that hold this cover on, and these are short, so there are a variety of screws on the cassettes. But like I said, it's pretty obvious where they go, so I wouldn't worry too much about putting them in the wrong spot. Okay, another thing, when you take this cover off, there is a little like hook here, if you can see that little hook, and when you go to put it back on, you can kind of hook it on and it hangs down. So that's helpful when you're working on the system. Now we're going through and we got our clips here. This is a different style safety clip. You can see this little white clip here. That keeps the plug from backing out, but that's easy. You just basically pull that out. Okay. We're gonna pull this out. And here, like I said before, the plugs go where the plugs go. So you don't have to worry too much about remembering. They only fit in one spot. Here's another one of those clips. This is exactly like the one I dropped before. So hopefully I don't drop this time. If you can see, I'm just pulling the tabs. And then there. So this is slightly different than the other one, the smaller one. Get that off, and now you can unplug that. So we got this. And we want to undo our ground wire. Now on this, there are 3 screws that hold this panel in place. There's one here. And you could take it off in whatever order works best for you. I have my own set ways in doing things. I like to take this one off first so I can hold this with my left hand. And then the last screw is now this is going to come completely out. Oh, one last screw here too. Oh, okay. And that's your board. Set that aside. Now, if you haven't worked on these before, this is your drain pan. This is the insulation, it's plastic on the other side, but this is your drain pan all the way across here. That being said, there is a condensation pump built into these systems. If you want to drain this, because the drain line is higher than the drain pan because of the condensation pump, this is a little stopper, there's a little rubber stopper. And also you want to make sure that once you take this out, you may want to have a bucket underneath it because water's going to come out of there, because this is going to be the lowest point of your drain pan. So all that water is going to come rushing out. So make sure when you take this out, you're prepared for that. Also, it's very important that once you take it out and you drain all the water, go ahead and put it back in before you forget, because you don't want to have that callback. Now, on each corner there, we're going to go ahead and take this cover off here. There's only 2 more screws. Almost done, Heather.
No worries.
Okay.
You've got like 8 minutes.
Oh, 8 minutes. Oh, man. Let's see. We're almost there. I don't have to reassemble this, do I? Okay, so there's a screw just like the other panel. There's a screw on all 4 corners. There's one here, 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 and then the last one is here. I recommend taking these off caddy corner. So take this screw off, then this one. Take this screw off. I'm right-handed, so I would say take this screw off. Once that screws out, you can hold it, and then you can take this one off. This drain pan is in there pretty snug, so it shouldn't fall down on you, but always be prepared for it since everything's above your head. But it doesn't weigh much, so even if it does fall off, you'll be good. And then going back to screw questions. So see, these are longer coarse screws, but like I said, you'll be able to figure out which one goes where because you won't be able to hold this in with a short screw. So. Okay. As you can see, it does hold in place. But if there's a lot of water in there, there's a good chance it could fall on you. So always be careful. So once you got all the screws out, you just kind of wiggle it out. Don't yank on it too hard because before you let it bring it down, there's the float switch for the condensation pump. So you want to take that off. Now this out, you can clean. And we're inside here. These are ideal your UV lights and your eye waves to mount them to. It is styrofoam. Make sure you clean it really well, and you could stick it to the inside of here. I have seen people put the UV lights, run them up around the top. Ideally, if you can avoid putting it close to the blower wheel, the better, just in case future, if something happens and the glue falls off, then it could get caught up in the blower wheel. On the high wall, UV, really don't have an option for that. It needs to go to the blower wheel. Of course, more room in the cassette, as you can see. And you can see the gold fin. You can see that gold fin. So you really don't want to have any heavy turns hitting this, right? Because over time, if you do put even if you use the mild cleaner, make sure you rinse it thoroughly. You really don't want anything chemical-wise to sit on this gold fin surface because it will eat away at it over time. And then here's your condensation pump. So if you need to remove that, pretty simple. There's some screws up there. Your sensors, everything's here. These are very easy to work on. So I'm a big fan of the cassettes. If you have the access, if you have a drop ceiling and you have an office where they want to put a mini split system in, if you could put one up in the drop ceiling, I'd recommend it for sure. And I think that's about it when it comes to disassembling and cleaning. Now, the only issue you will have with this is when you're cleaning it, this is obviously going to create a bigger mess. So what I have done in the past is go to Home Depot and get some visqueen and tape some visqueen around the outsides and make your own sort of bib kit. And then ideally, if you can get a big construction garbage can right underneath it, and then just have that visqueen rest into the garbage can, and you can clean it. What's good is that these are very thin, so they tend to clean fairly easily. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have. Does the iWave need clearance, like the iWave R?
It doesn't need the same clearance, right? Because these don't have that self-cleaning system. So with the iWave, the most important thing about the iWave that for these is that you can access the brushes to maintain them yourself, and you want to give yourself, I'd say, about an inch or so. Everything's tight clearance here, so you really only have very limited space. But you just want to make sure that this, if you see a little metal where that brush is, that cannot rest against metal. This cannot touch metal at all. So, if you're going to take it and I'm just going to stick it on here, right? Oh, that'll work. No, it won't. That's why I said it's better to keep it here. You give me an inch or so clearance, but is there like clearance? Not that I know of. Not like with the iWaves for the standard residential systems. You don't have that self-cleaning system. This is something that you as a contractor, when you do maintenance, you have to be diligent to have a clean brush that's set aside for this. I just recommend you get a little toothbrush and brush all these little brushes off every time. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Do you want to move into our quiz questions?
Yes, let me just change my camera angle. Give me one.
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Here. Question number 1. Why is it recommended to remove the blower wheel prior to cleaning the evaporator coil? Okay, question number 2. How do you pump down a Sophia multi-zone system? So question number 3. How long is the warranty on a Cooper&Hunter system if it's not registered within 60 days of installation? All right. And question number 4. How long is the warranty on a Cooper&Hunter system when registered within of installation?
Just remember, guys, that you have a 1-year warranty on the remote. That's the only thing that was missing there.
Okay. And the last thing we have, is there any questions?
Said, there are different versions of the head units on these. There is a Duct S. Those are very simple to clean. Maybe in a later video, we'll go over how to maintenance and install those as well. I chose the high wall because that's the most common that you're going to be installing. And I chose the 4-way cassette. 4-way cassette is, I think it's underutilized. I think it's especially in an office setting where you have a drop ceiling. I really recommend offering that system. It's very easy to maintain, and you don't have a lot of the maintenance issues, right? That you do with the high wall. With the high walls, you have that blower wheel that has really thin spaces in between the fins. With the cassette, if you notice when I was in there, the blower wheel is there are bigger fins, so you're not going to have to deal with clogging blower wheel and airflow issues like you do on the high walls. The high walls, it's very important that you remove that blower wheel to clean it.
We do have one question. How much clearance do you need on the top or around the cassette?
The cassette, so all the clearances are going to be in the manual, but typically if you're going to 6 inches, 4 to 6 inches above, you don't want to mount that cassette directly to the bottom of, if you have a concrete roof, you don't want to secure it. You don't want to screw it directly. You always want to hang them. You typically give yourself 4 to 6 inches is fine. I've seen them as close as 1 to 2 inch and with no issues. The idea is you don't want to fasten it directly to the bottom of the roof is ideal. Around the outside, you don't need to get to anywhere except where the ports are for the drain line and the copper hookup. But if you're in a drop ceiling, I don't recommend these going in a hard ceiling. Although I have seen them in hard ceilings. Typically, the joists in a lot of places they're too narrow for this to fit in between the joists. I have seen them in homes where they put the cassettes everywhere because yes, they are easy to maintain. You can get to everything from underneath, but God forbid you have to go back for a freon leak. You do want to be able to find a way to access those flares. I typically am not a big fan in hard ceilings. I'd rather see those in drop ceilings, but people do it all the time, and that's just my own personal preference. So that's not recommended by Cooper&Hunter or anything. It's just for me. And when I was in the field with my guys, when we would go on a job where they were installed, typically we would go back on a job where the previous contractor put them in a hard ceiling, and he didn't leave a panel and there was no access in the attic. So to check for a freon leak, we had to cut holes in the ceiling. So that's at least my 2 cents. Said Cooper&Hunter is very big on you guys contacting them. By all means, call me. You can reach out to me and get my phone number, get my email. You can text me pictures, text me videos, FaceTime, whatever you need. I'm there for you. But Cooper&Hunter is very big on you guys calling them. They have a great tech support system. It's not a ticket system. So if you need tech support, it's always best to call Cooper&Hunter when you're either at the job or on your way to the job or close to the job, because there's a good chance if they don't answer the phone, they're going to call you back shortly. So you're not going to have to wait for a day or two for a call back.